Hello and welcome to our morning edition of Arirang News. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. On the first leg of his overseas trip in San Francisco, President Lee Jae-myung positioned Korea as a key partner in the global AI supply chain, sealing major tech deals before heading to Brazil for summit with South American leaders. The US has paused strikes on Iran for a second straight night to allow room for diplomacy, even as both Washington and Tehran signal that tensions and the threat of renewed military action remain far from resolved. Korea's National Election Commission is under scrutiny after receiving requests to revise voter turnout from June's local elections, including corrections that increased vote totals by more than 6,000 ballots, as authorities open their first appeals hearing and investigate whether further undocumented changes were made. President Lee Jae-myung has announced the San Francisco AI Declaration, presenting South Korea as an irreplaceable supply chain partner. Joining the event were leaders of the world's leading technology companies, including Samsung, SK, NVIDIA, and OpenAI. Our Blue House correspondent Yoon Jung-min reports from San Francisco.
South Korea will serve as an irreplaceable pillar of the global AI supply chain. That was President Lee Jae-myung at the San Francisco AI Summit on Saturday, attended by global big techs, including the leaders of Samsung, SK, NVIDIA, and OpenAI, among others. He announced the San Francisco AI Declaration.
우리가 가진 세계 최고 수준의 메모리 반도체 경쟁력과 생산 역량을 토대로 신뢰할 수 있는 AI 반도체 생산 기지이자 공급망 파트너가 될 것입니다.
He added that the massive investment plan in AI and chips unveiled last month will ensure a stable global supply of semiconductors. The president also said that AI will be rapidly deployed at industrial sites and vowed to support developing countries to close the technology gap. During the event, the CEO of NVIDIA, Jensen Huang, announced a major business partnership with SK on memory chip purchases.
This is truly the golden ages for Korea. We announced with SK Group today that our two companies will partner to expand our partnership and extend our business relationship to over $500 billion.
Samsung Electronics Chairman Lee Jae-yong highlighted the importance of cooperation between Korea and the U.S.
Cross-border collaboration is essential to build a complete ecosystem that encompasses innovative AI models, cutting-edge semiconductors, AI data centers, and strategies.
Later, the president and the business leaders had a dinner in a more casual setting, highlighting partnership and cooperation.
Okay.
On Sunday, Lee met 6 top venture capital firms in Silicon Valley, including Andreessen Horowitz and General Catalyst. He urged that Korea and the U.S. broaden their partnership in technology, innovation, and startups. An MOU was signed between the National Pension Service and the firms for partnership. Having wrapped up a series of major corporate events in the U.S., President Lee will begin his summit diplomacy with the leaders of South America, first in Brazil with a focus on trade and critical minerals. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News, San Francisco.
As we just heard, President Lee used the first leg of his trip to position Korea as a trusted global AI semiconductor hub, unveiling the San Francisco AI Declaration and promoting deeper cooperation with major tech companies. The summit also produced new investment and business commitments. So for more on what this could mean, we're joined today by Sung-soo Eric Kim, founder and CEO at DataCrunch Global and adjunct professor at Yonsei Graduate School of Business. Professor Sung, thank you very much for coming on today.
Thank you very much.
So President Lee's San Francisco AI Declaration frames Korea as an irreplaceable player in the global AI supply chain rather than simply a leading chip producer. So how do you think this ambition is in terms of realisticness? And given that Korea's leverage rests almost entirely on memory chips, what would Korea need to do differently to achieve this goal?
So I think that Korea is in the golden age of technology right now. Because we are the monopoly in global memory chip manufacturing, especially in HBMs. And because we also have foundry business driven by Samsung Electronics, Korea is the center of the global semiconductor supply chain, which is most importantly the basic technology for the AI era, which we live in today. So Korea is fully leveraging this position and to discuss with global tech leaders now. You see that we are partnering with NVIDIA and Broadcom and all of these AI leaders from the supply of semiconductor side, and the government is trying really hard to also ensure that Korea will be a trustworthy partner in reshaping the AI era and the global economy.
Right, and the summit also produced a wave of partnerships between Korean firms and American AI leaders, with companies committing to projects spanning chips, data centers, AI factories, and infrastructure. And I think it's also worth noting that these partnerships are framed as long-term, so they're stretching 5 years or more in an industry that's historically been very, cyclical. And from your perspective, do these agreements fundamentally strengthen Korea's strategic position in the AI race, or does it expose the country to risks of AI capital expenditure cooling before these numbers can materialize?
I think we have to first understand that two things. First, the physical AI era is just around the corner, which we cannot imagine how much demand of HBM chips are required to support this era. Also, we also need foundry, but HBM chips are very important in the physical AI era. Imagine robots running around and having a smart city and AI factories and data centers being constructed. That all requires HBM chips and foundries. So it's really important for Korea to be able to supply those semiconductors, because large companies like NVIDIA and Broadcom will require bulk supply, which means that they are almost a monopoly when it comes to these semiconductors. So they require a company that is very, very reliable in supplying these HBMs or foundry to supply the necessary bulk quantity that they need. So although the semiconductor industry might have cyclical patterns, it is most important that the leading companies are capable of supplying a bulk quantity. That is very, very important.
Right, and President Lee's meeting with AI firm executives, including informal dinners and personal exchanges, seem to suggest that Seoul is leaning heavily on personal relationship building and not just formal state-to-state agreements. So how important is direct engagement between political leaders and private technology companies today? And does this reflect a broader shift in how countries compete for influence in the AI era?
So semiconductor industry is very important, not only for Korea, but for all of these global tech leaders, and it's a center stage of global geopolitics. So it is important to show how much Korean government is also committed to support Korean companies to reshape the global semiconductor supply chain and also make the global semiconductor supply chain a more sustainable and reliable economy and supply chain. So in that sense, I think it's very important for the Korean government to directly engage with these tech companies to show that Korea has a vision to co-partner developing the AI era with the leading tech companies in the world in the AI era. So as a government policy, it's very important. As a geopolitical, strategy, it's very important. And also very important for our Korean companies to partner with fellow US tech companies.
Right, unfortunately, that's all we have time for today, but thank you very much for your insight this morning.
Thank you very much.
President Donald Trump has paused U.S. strikes on Iran for a second straight night, saying he wants to give diplomacy more time while keeping military options on the table. The pause comes as Iran confirms back-channel talks with Washington are continuing through mediators, even as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu insists Iran must abandon its nuclear program with or without a deal. Lee Seung-jae has our story.
President Donald Trump has paused the U.S. military strikes on Iran for a second consecutive night, saying he wants to give diplomacy more time, even as Washington insists that all military options remain on the table. Speaking on Fox News on Sunday, U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Mike Waltz said the U.S. leader is giving talks some space, while stressing that the pause should not be seen as a decision against further military action. Waltz also dismissed reports that the administration is concerned about dwindling air defense missile stockpiles, saying the U.S. military has all the resources it needs to continue operations if necessary. Iran also signaled a temporary easing of tensions, with an Iranian military spokesperson saying Tehran has halted its retaliatory attacks, while the country's foreign ministry confirmed that indirect communications with the United States are continuing through mediators, including Qatar and Pakistan. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Esmail Begay said diplomatic channels remain active despite escalating tensions. However, he accused Washington of violating a previous memorandum of understanding, calling it the third diplomatic betrayal by the United States. He said Iran remains committed to defending the country unless the U.S. changes its position. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the conflict with Iran will only end when the Iranian regime either falls or is weakened enough to abandon its nuclear program. In an interview with Fox News on Sunday, Netanyahu said Iran must end its nuclear ambitions with or without a deal, arguing that recent U.S. and Israeli strikes have set Tehran's nuclear program back by several years. He also warned that a nuclear-armed Iran would pose a direct threat not only to Israel but also to the United States, adding that Israel will continue working closely with Washington to prevent that outcome. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
North Korea has slammed the latest ASEAN Regional Forum chair's statement that reaffirms the goal of the complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. In a statement carried by the Korean Central News Agency on Monday, Kim Yo-jong called the declaration pathetic and said North Korea's nuclear capabilities would continue to advance without pause. The criticism follows the ARF chair's statement released on Friday, which expressed concern over Pyongyang's nuclear and missile programs and urged compliance with UN Security Council resolutions, dialogue and denuclearization. Kim argues the declaration ignores North Korea's constitution, which defines North Korea as a nuclear weapons state, and insists that no outside pressure or rhetoric would change its current course. Korea's National Election Commission received more than 70 requests to revise voter turnout figures on the day of the country's June local elections. According to election records, correction requests came from nearly 60 election officers, with some corrections increasing vote totals by more than 6,000 ballots and other changes being made up to 12 hours after the errors occurred. Election guidelines require detailed explanations and approval before any revisions are made, but many of the revisions reportedly had vague reasons such as correction due to omitted entry or simply change in voter count. A joint police prosecution investigation is examining whether additional undocumented changes were made. This comes as the National Election Commission opens its first hearing into election appeals related to the June 3rd local elections. The main opposition, People Power Party chairman, is expected to personally present arguments focusing on alleged irregularities in Seoul, Incheon, and Gyeonggi-do Province. The 48th session of the UNESCO World Heritage Committee is underway in the southern port city of Busan. On Saturday, the committee approved the second phase extension of Korea's Gyeonggi-do Korean Tidal Flats World Heritage Property, expanding one of the world's most important coastal ecosystems. Our Cho Young-eun reports.
UNESCO's World Heritage Committee has approved the significant boundary modification of Korea's Gyeonggi-do Korean Tidal Flats, adding 4 new ones to the existing World Heritage property. With the expansion, it now comprises 6 component sites, adding to the original locations, Seocheon, Gochang, Sinan, and Bosong, Suncheon, first inscribed in 2021 for their outstanding universal value. The newly inscribed sites include Seosan in Chungcheongnam-do Province and Gohung, Muan, and Yeosu in Jeollanam-do Province.
Korea's tidal flats have once again been recognized as one of the world's greatest marine ecosystems. Stretching along the country's southwestern coast, they also serve as vital stopover habitats for migratory birds traveling between Oceania and Central Asia.
The decision underscores the global ecological importance of Korea's tidal flats within the West Sea ecosystem and the East Asian Australasian flyway, one of the world's most important migratory bird routes.
This inscription is both a great honor and the beginning of our responsibility to preserve this invaluable natural heritage for future generations.
The International Union for Conservation of Nature, or IUCN, says the boundary modification directly addresses recommendations made by the committee following the original inscription in 2021 by making the protected area stronger and better connected as a whole group. The IUCN also noted that the site benefits from a comprehensive legal framework, integrated governance, effective monitoring systems, and the active participation of local communities, describing community support as one of the site's greatest long-term strengths. The committee concluded that the expanded property fully satisfies the UNESCO Criterion 10, recognizing its exceptional biodiversity.
The nominated property would substantially increase the number of bird species and the wider marine biodiversity. The 5 nominated component parts support numerous globally threatened species and internationally important bird populations.
With the latest inscription, Korea now has 17 UNESCO World Heritage properties, including 15 cultural heritage sites and 2 natural heritage sites, further strengthening its contribution to the protection of the world's shared heritage. With the official approval of the Korean Tidal Flats expansion, Korea has strengthened its commitment to protecting the valuable coastal ecosystem. The UNESCO World Heritage Committee continues in Busan through July 29. 조영은, Arirang News, Busan.
Gyeonggi-do Province has achieved its public RE100 Vision, powering all public institutions entirely from renewable energy sources, and much earlier than expected. This milestone was made possible by transforming building walls, windows, and even vacant public land into mini solar power plants. Ta Eun-kyung reports.
Here at the Gyeonggi hybrid town, where the Gyeonggi provincial office is located, the building's exterior walls, windows, and various surfaces are integrated with solar power technology. Generating over 1 megawatt of electricity, it stands as the nation's largest solar cluster integrated into a building.
Gyeonggi-do Province has supported the construction to help the domestic solar industry gain export competitiveness and secure a leading position in the global market.
Near the West Suwon and Waram interchanges, a 5.2 megawatt solar power plant has been constructed on vacant public land. This project features a participatory model in which residents directly invested in the construction and shared the earnings. Currently, about 11,000 residents across 26 cooperatives jointly own the plant. Since declaring its public RE100 Vision in 2023, Gyeonggi-do Province has been driving initiatives to transition all electricity used by public institutions to renewable energy. The vision aims to spearhead the expansion of RE100 into the private sector by utilizing idle public spaces, such as rooftops and parking lots owned by Gyeonggi-do Province, its public agencies, and municipal governments. As a result, Gyeonggi-do Province has surpassed its target as of this past April, installing 28.5 megawatts of solar capacity. This accounts for 101% of the total electricity consumed by its public institutions. Building on this success, the province plans to expand this renewable energy transition model across all 31 cities and districts within this jurisdiction. Cha Eun-kyung, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Chu Ji-hyun, and this is The World Now. In Germany, police have shot and killed the man suspected of carrying out Saturday's deadly van attack near Berlin's Pride festivities. Investigators tracked the suspect to a garden plot on Sunday and then shot him as he charged them with a knife. The manhunt came after the van plowed into people in Tiergarten Park during the city's Pride Festival on Saturday night, killing at least one person and injuring 29, with some of those people reportedly stabbed. Germany's interior minister described the suspect as a 21-year-old German-born citizen of Lebanese descent with a long criminal history and links to Islamist extremism. Chancellor Friedrich Merz vowed Germany will stand firm, calling it an attack on the country's open liberal society. In France, wildfires are closing in on Bordeaux, forcing thousands to evacuate. France's interior minister on Sunday called the situation, quote, unprecedented, saying the fire is not under control and is heading straight for the city, now roughly 15 kilometers away. France has evacuated about 220,000 people so far. Spain also faces wildfires with more than 75,000 evacuated and another 30,000 told to shelter in place. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez visited Avila, where more than 50,000 hectares were burned. Neighboring countries are pitching in to fight the wildfires. Greece and Italy have flown in firefighting planes. Portugal has sent over 100 personnel, and Turkey has 2 more aircraft on the way. The new UK Prime Minister Andy Burnham said he, quote, will always put Britain's interests first, adding any leader has to be ready to challenge even US President Donald Trump when the national interest demands it. His comments come on Sunday in his first major interview since taking office last week, becoming Britain's 7th Prime Minister in 10 years. Burnham ruled out an early election before 2029 and said London will hit NATO's defense spending goal of 3.5% of GDP by 2035. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelenskyy will be Burnham's first foreign visitor, meeting him on Monday at a naval base where over 200 Ukrainian troops have trained. In India, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is launching a task force to fix the exam system after weeks of youth protests over leaked exam papers. India's education minister stepped down on Saturday over the exam leaks, which impacted millions of students. Modi says he wants a system that's transparent and tech-driven. Officials also agreed to overhaul exams, drop charges against protesters, and pay families of students who died by suicide over the leaks.
With the monsoon season effectively behind us, dangerous heat is taking center stage across the country. Southern Korea is once again facing near 40-degree temperatures, and it is essential to take precautions against the heat. Yesterday, Yangsan and Biryang in Gyeonggi-do Province soared to 39.3 degrees Celsius, marking the highest temperature recorded in Korea so far this summer. While today's heat will be just as intense, with a heat wave emergency warning being issued in those regions. Meanwhile, scattered showers of 5 to 60 millimeters are in the forecast for central parts of Korea through tonight. And this afternoon, Seoul will be getting up to 33 degrees Celsius, Daegu at 37 degrees, but Gyeonggi will be topping out at 38 degrees. The showers may briefly cool things down, but humidity will quickly build again once they move out. The intense heat should continue for the time being, so take extra care to avoid heat-related illnesses.
That's all we have for this morning. Arirang News will be back at noon Korea time. Thanks for watching.